The first question is the relationship between the basis of designation and the thing which is designated upon that. And the question is that the basis of designation, if we take, for example, a table, the table as a collection of parts seems to be a functional thing, a thing that's able to perform functions. And then upon that, we identify that thing as with the name table, or we have the idea or thought table. So how is it that we can say that it's merely a name or merely conceptually constructed by thought when there's this basis which is a functional thing? Then dakshidon dachugi dowe yorba di pechashana jokse dunche nubi ngubo yorba dunche nuba jokse krang dunche nubure any dakshu di mingdang tokpa yorba dakshu mingtam re tokpa tam re sa la
dakche jokse 아니 요제기 다시
족색이 딱
요제 다시 요제기 아니다 가소리 강바당 대든지 와라 그런 거 장라 요제기 양라 줘라 요제기 양라데 요제기 다시 체 양라 쳐바티 요제데 딱주치
예 딱주디 민참으로봐
다시들
아니 독바참래
똑바참을 똑바다참을
독배다참래 dakchukrang 독배다참으로봐 dakchukrang
dakchukrang 독배다참을 다시코야 독배다참을
예 dunche nubadan 독배다참기 디 dunche nubadan
dunche nu바 독배다참을
이는 디 일단 맞죠 디 누구보디 너네를 sam으로
안 되지가라 누구한테라 가와 제도가
So the question I'm asking is, this table seemed like a real thing. It actually does stuff. We put things on it, whatever.
테이블에 대해서는 테이블이 강바다 안에 대 돈소당 안에 토디 카카라 가베다 준조 강가 초바텔라
So this combination of the top and the legs and the whole configuration of it is the basis of designation for saying it's a table. So we say then that this collection of the parts collectively, the whole configuration of it, the shape and so forth, that's the basis for designating this thing as a table. And then the designation table is something that we apply to that, and it's a mere appearance that is appearing. But he said, Rinpoche said that the designation itself is a functioning thing, The table, the basis of designation, which collectively is the thing that we identify as a table, is a functioning thing. The thought, which is doing the conceptual construction of the identity of the thing, is a functioning thing. So all of this, these are all functional things.
That's right.
So does that get at the question? So this temple has 8 pillars, for example. So each of these pillars has sort of the property of being a pillar. That is, each individual pillar, there's 8 of them, but each of them has this general, it's called a universal, which means a sort of like general characteristic of being a pillar. So if we say then, if we look at the 8 individual pillars, if we look at the individually, each of them alone, would we say that is the pillar in the universal sense of, as a universal, there's no other way to really translate that, as a universal, that is the sort of general category of pillar? No, it's not. So then, this general, this universal pillar, that is, it's like the category of pillar, is not, you don't find it individually in any of the specific of the 8 pillars, and it's not, so it's not all of them together either, it's just a mere appearance.
Yeah, all that tenacity. 조제기 이나양 조제기 강바 조제기 다들 가서리 미래 와라 토 레레레레 마마인바디 디식사지 간라 가상한테 신달을 자르가 식사를 간라 두저 참아요 와래 와라
식사
식식나 식사지 간라 디 참아요 와래 와 레레 마인바디 식사를 간라 조저가 말아 조저 초바디 와래
So then,
조저야 리사를 간라 입지 와라 입티양 조저 말해.
So then it's here, like in the case of the pillar, I'm sorry, the case of the table also, same thing. If we take the table and we look at all of the parts of it and such, when we chop it into all of the bits that it could be chopped into, similar to like if we take the chariot or the cart and we divide up all the parts, then we don't have a chariot or a cart anymore. Similarly with the table, there's no, table once the parts have all disintegrated into different things. But likewise, we would say that it's not, the table as such is not the configuration of all of the parts collectively put together.
Come to Rene, my come to Topayang, my that Casa Quadugo, Dashidan and Medu Quadu was an Nang the Chawachi. Jordan Dashiti to Jordan Nang the Jordi Chawachi.
So it's the same thing with the person. Then we said in the earlier part of the text that the person is not earth, water, wind, fire, space, consciousness. It's not any of like these 6 constituents. If you look at them individually, you don't find the person within any of the individual constituents. You don't find, and the person is not just the collection, the composite of these 6 constituents. Rather, the person is something that merely appears when the collection of the 6 constituents is present. Then the person appears.
Yeah.
And
to
really understand this, you have to understand emptiness. It's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, that's a Kalakawa. Kasanga Shawaiba, Dashitama means Laiba, Dashitama.
다시
다시 참아.
참
강아 다시 시대 다시 참았으라 임바. 탁자라 주도 다지 잠바. 탁다디 주기 다시 참아 말해. 나 임바 가서 잡아샤 임바.
디 다시 참아
참아야 다시 참아 가서 한번 몰라 임바.
제마 말해
다시 참아. 타발라 주도 따와당 컴주 되와라 때네 강사 따와 니워텔라. 아니 타지된도 주 매바당 컴주 되비된도 주 강사 매바 지바 직장레스 라 임바 가상아마.
그래
임바.
그래
다시 가래 다시
타타란
탁자 타자 주도 도비 다시 탁자
타타
강사도 도비 다시 컴주 되와 이마 풍봉아 쳐봐나 컴주 쳐봐 풍봉아 쳐봐.
So here then, like the same thing with the comparison then of the there's a difference between imagining that there's a snake when you observe a coiled striped rope that looks like a snake. There's no snake there, but that basis for imagining the snake is there. There's the thing which is suitable to form an imagination of the imaginary snake, and likewise in the case of the collection of the components or the aggregates or the constituents that are the basis for identifying a thing as a person, then you likewise have a basis of designation which is suitable to identify. In the second case, is suitable to be identified as a person.
타타자라 주도 다들 잠바 타지 돈도 주 낭잠데 주레외스나 다디 주 말에.
So when you look at
아니 바가르에서 타타데 주지 다시 참아 말에.
다시 참아
다시 참아 참아고다 다시 참아 자중원에 전에 소리다 참아. 가서 한번 주소.
제마당 샤차당 제마 dinner
다시 참았으나
다시 참아 진이바 들어봐.
참았으래 다시 참이면 다시 참아.
So here then, valid. So in the first case, the coiled up rope, striped rope, which is coiled up in the dark room, that's not a valid basis for designating the thing as a snake. It's a coiled rope. Whereas the the constituents or the aggregates collectively, which are the basis for identifying something as a person, that is a valid basis of designation for identifying that as a person.
다 풍부 초밤 감주 초발라 때나 강사세 다바 티세나 강사도 노비시 풍부 초밤 감주 초바데 강사 도 다시 참아래.
So
아니 다시 참아 이미 잡았어.
So there's a difference then in terms of basis of designation. Coiled rope is not a valid basis for identifying a snake, whereas the constituents, the six constituents collectively, or the five aggregates, either way, that collection of them is a suitable basis of designation for identifying something as a person.
다 들어 잡아. 다바 집아 다시 임발라 직 참만 들어와당 직 참만 면도비 군산 가와 투바레스나 타자라 주도 나위 로데 차지出去了吧 是吧 저 타준제 직들이 차지 出去了吧 풍부 초발라 때는 다 초비 다바 장도 강산 나위 로데 차지 出去 말려봐.
So the basic difference then, one way of differentiating those two is that when we examine the coiled up rope, and we look at it in terms of whether it's a valid basis for identifying or designating it as a snake, we can see the mind or cognition, perception which is seeing that as a snake, is affected by some kind of temporary cause of error That is, it's being affected by a temporary cause of error, the dark room, etc., that's causing you to imagine that it's a snake. However, and then in the case of the five aggregates or the six constituents forming in their collections, forming a basis for identifying a person, that is a valid basis of designation because and even though it's really just the process of conceptual construction or imagination that is making that identity and is identifying that thing as a person. Nevertheless, so in terms of the process of imagination, one can say they're both imagining, conceptually creating the identities that they're ascribing to their basis of designation. But in the second case, the identification of the six constituents or the five aggregates as a person, that in that case then the thought or the cognition which is making that identification is not affected by any kind of temporary source of error.
예. 아니 다 쇼쟁이 아니 컴퓨터 초반 풍부 초비 딘도 강사些大把 초비大점도 강사 지대비 타냐라 차바大점도 강사 여바다라 아니 타냐비 체면 여바 매바 전전자위 체면 여바 매바 인장 아니 강사些풍부 초반라 때냐大점도 낭점도 타냐도 샤쇼.
So it's in the case of the five aggregates as the basis of designation of the person, that is, we can demonstrate or establish that it's a valid basis of designation as a person, and that such a designation is the way it is because it meets three criteria or standards for establishing something as being the case here. Conventional thing, that is. And the first of these is that it's just commonly known in the world. We commonly accept that the five aggregates are that which we identify as a person. And then it's not contradicted by any other kind of conventional valid reasoning. That is, other forms of conventional valid reasoning do not contradict the identification of the collection of the aggregates as a person. And then finally, it's not vitiated or contradicted by any kind of reasoning which is investigating the ultimate nature of things.
타자를 주도 따와 나시 타지 따잠도 지대지 타냐라 아니 주 맞아 주 여발라 타냐비 체면 여봐 전단제비 체면 여봐 인상 다 권이 민자의 잡아디 낭잠도 주와 타지 등도 주 또배 따잠이나 낭잠 따잠도 주 맞주 다시 폼비 등도 아니 또배 바 따바잠도 아니 어서 가서래 따잠도 강사 줘야 돼 강사 거르샤서나 낭잠데.
So then in both cases again if we turn to the snake which we're imagining existing within a rope, in that case it's just generally understood in the world that coiled ropes are not actual snakes. So on that first standard or criterion, it's clear that is not it's not a snake. It's just a coiled rope. And then second, other kinds of conventional valid reasoning can establish that the coiled rope is not a actual snake, so it doesn't meet that second standard of proof either. And then even from the ultimate point of view, one can see that there's no real snake there within the rope. So in all three criteria, one is unable to establish the rope as existing even conventionally. The snake as existing even conventionally. Whereas the person, as we said, meets all three person being established as the identity or for the collection of the aggregates, or is that identity being mentally, it's a mental fabrication. That is, it's merely conceptually constructed as the identity of the person. It's not as the identification for the collection of the 5 aggregates. But so in both cases, you have a process of mental fabrication or imagination going on. But in the first case, the case of the rope being identified as the snake, that's not the case at all. Whereas in the second case, the person identified based upon its basis of designation, that is something that can be established through valid cognition. Did you understand that? Understand that? So the appearance here in both cases, the rope appears like a snake. The collection of the aggregates appears like the person as the person. But it's in both cases So the appearance of the snake is something that is not real at all in any way whatsoever. Whereas the person appearing as such, just the person appearing as person, we're not talking about the basis of designation, but the person itself appearing as a person, that appearance alone is not something to be negated. Rather, the portion of the appearance in which the person appears as if it was established by means of its own intrinsic nature, that is the portion that is to be negated, not the simple appearance of the person as such.
Oh, yeah.
So apart from the appearance, Dendrupki.
Dendru number 2. 인자 나란조 쪽도 나야 줘라. 쪽도 나야 링링 코랑 아랑시 주와 뭐 dendru 나와리.
그것도 마송게.
다 유주야 근데 아.
가짜 나와디.
가짜 나와. 가짜디 된다 나와고 쪽도 나야 코랑 가짜 나와.
알래.
쪽도 나야 코랑 가짜 나와.是吧？쪽도 나야 데 파샤니 dendru 나와 줘야 말이. 다.
맞죠.
알아줘.
So there's a saying, Master Jankya said that apart from things appearing as the apart from this sort of thing which the appearance of the object of negation, that is the appearance of things as being intrinsically existent, he says, apart from that, the sort of like the table, let's take the table, apart from the table appearing as intrinsically existent, it doesn't appear for us at all.
Oh, that did it.
So for us.
Yeah. That catches it and then Kawa better than a dua. Kawa somebody, Kawa Yore, so Kawa Yore, and Yogorwa, Kawa Kangala, Jesus Dwaki. The Tenashi, Jesus Dwa Kawa Yogo, that Kawa the Kawa Yore, Jesus Dwaki, Kawa Rede, and the Kawa somebody marry. That do what than a Kawa, you say, Kawa somebody, how do?
So then you ask yourself the question, back to the pillars here in the assembly hall. The 8 pillars, each of them individually, is not the mere universal pillar. Mere universal pillar is the general category that subsumes all pillars, period. So it's not, if we look, now is it this pillar? Is this pillar the single one here, the universal, the simple, mere universal? Or is it that other one? No, you go through each of them 8 individually, and then you ask yourself, then where is this universal pillar? Where is the universal pillar? Ask that question. Ask yourself that question. It's not each. If you look at them individually, it's not any one of them alone. So all the people here too. If you look at all the people that have gathered here, which of them individually is this universal category or mere universal of person or human? Let's say. There's all these humans here, but if you look at each of them individually, is any one of them the simple universal human? And then when we all leave this room, this assembly hall, we'd have to say, then the mere universal of human, it doesn't exist anymore. So if we take here, like in the people in this room, through the sort of collection of all of us being in this room, then we form the idea of like the general category or mere universal, which is the category of humans or human. And is that right? So we'll stop there for now. 류 밑상의 삼초 열어. 이 봄에기 류 밑상의 열에. 이 봄에이나 이 배차샤나 이 그사 날조마이나. 날조마이나. 되니 검수 간에서 도그래. 안 도그래.
난조마에. 비면 난조마이나.
그래.
어때 가가래. 그 밑상 말이.
말해. 그런 이 루미창와 개비 루미창와 공부를 해. 개비 루미창와 공부를 해.
루미창을 비밀리에 미창을. 미창 집어지자래. 사전에는 이 본보시 이 친절한 미창을.
그래 이니 공캔 봄에이나 되니 간에서 공부를 해.
뭐서 천시 수행에 차바지스 내라 아니 비밀 송화열 여인장한테 천시 송화를 마도 개발리야 매상화를 비밀리야 매상화 미치버치자래.
그래 시청디 카라 부모이나 검수 가가를 해.
저
검수디 루미창과 검수 가가를 해.
매상이 버치버치.
책벌에.
그럼 매상이 버치버치자래.
그래 이는 류 카라.
아니 류 차주 그 왕기 아니 매상화 자다 민자 연구라. 여와다 비밀 류 차주지 왕기 매상에 대세 자다 민자 연구를 마도 류 매상이 버치버치자래.
So here, the question I was asking is, in this text, in the next section, there's a section on the how to think about the impurity of the body. And likewise, in the introduction to the Bodhisattva's way of life, there's a section which explains how to meditate on or think about the impurity of the body. And in both cases, they use female bodies as the basis for doing this kind of meditation. But the question arises, if a woman is doing this kind of meditation, how would they do the meditation? Would they think about the impurity of the female body or the impurity of the male body? And the basic answer is that, well, both male bodies and female bodies are equally filthy or impure. So in terms of the way in which one does this meditation, one is basically meditating upon the filthiness of the body, but to eliminate this kind of attachment to bodies of the opposite sex or whatever, then one meditates on it in that way. So basically one just, some minor modifications basically, depending on male bodies are slightly different from female bodies, but they're equally unclean or filthy. So when you're doing this meditation, you make the appropriate changes depending upon which sex you are or which gender or whatever.
Oh, yeah. 다 다중이디 주고되라. 대마빌로 그 가서 자원전에 소재 맞아지. 교군라 소년 신우팡. 대외 유리 최신 대배 이기군라 소재 미삼보. 제가 오늘 자원라 다 담니 소재바 나야자 대주아 말에. 아니 주 신자지 이나양 손제 가서래 지금 가사 순자지 이나 랑게 소래 제왕 판와지와 말에 군전 대외 아니 자고 체랑 체령부 되니 되고요나 대외 유는 체승주 대배 아니 심지 굴라양 아니 소전 제바 파제산이 소전적인 심자만 지주와 말에 스타디인지래 와 이기고라 소제 미사모 So
then there's a verse here that's quoted from a chapter of the true one. It's called literally this chapter. It's a sutra which says, O king, you should not engage in taking life. All living beings hold their life extremely dear. Therefore, if you wish to live a long life, even in thought, you should not even have the motivation to take life. So this is a quotation from a sutra here.
Oh yeah, that is shula chala junse dungajang pusu pambajina ane gavare parubola chal negab dunga yongu yoneyang. 풀라 거라 편바지 연구회나 된다와데 아니 가와레 마도 미가 두고 말에 다디 퇴다는 말에 So here then so this is a quotation from a sutra, and then the implication of this passage shows that although something might be pleasant for one, a little bit pleasant for one temporarily, one should not do that if it's non-virtuous. That is, one should always devote oneself to doing things which are virtuous and which will benefit oneself in an ultimate or far-reaching sense. Oh yeah, that is it. 라란 집바 매동시 뒤가 집바 통주나 에세데 차와가시 체비 밀라라데 체디 아니 체디도 맞지 집바 매바 통신 아니 체침이 뒤가라 아니 집바 통화 좋아이나 라라 집바 메시지 뒤가 집바 통주나
So the next verse, which is verse 45 in my translation. I think your numbering is different in some cases, I was told. But in this translation, it's verse number 45. And it says, the first two lines of the next verse says, in some cases, the dire result of negativity is not observed. In other instances, the dire result is observed. So
아디 라라 집바 매동시 뒤가 집바 통주나 아니 차와가시 체비 미가시 그 차와가시 체비 밀라라데 라 체데라 집바 매바 통신 체디 치미 뒤가 집바 통화 좋아이나 제와 치마나
The translation is a little bit different in here from what we're reading in the text, and it says, at times one sees things as being free from fear, and at other times one sees them as fearful, in the first two lines of verse 45 here. And then in the commentary here it says, sometimes in this life, when one is doing some kind of activity, at the time one has done some kind of activity, one sees them as being without any kind of fear. And then in the future, at a future time, one sees them as being frightful or fearful.
가데 찌라 유되나 찌라지 아니 찌라 초고치 미치세 가데 찌라데 지바 마동와 세디 지바 마동 찌라데 세디라 지바 마동와 데라 켜랑 이땡그 연아 이때나 아니 겨와 치마란 지바 토나 아니 켜랑 초고치 미치디 지바래 그래 봐.
And then it says, so if you see, you who have not seen them as being fearful at one time have any kind of confidence in this, and then if you have seen them at being fearful at another time, then why aren't you frightened of them? It's suitable for you to be frightened of this.
Oh yeah. 나 드니 다 개와 샤바 되라 아니 다 가소래 창라 차바 가바 ям보 가바 ям보라 가바 비메라 차바 가바 링 가바 전에다 sabje 시에도 다 담보 창라 차바 가바 되라 창기 지대에 주지 대야 노양 사버 출 뭐바 차와 많이지 대외 창에 다도 봐서 어디기 아니 창라 롱자발라다네 창기 직된들이 담보 통유 뒤 라네 아니 현지 녀월 주 담보 통들라네 미리 창동가래 전에 녀월 주그래서 괴위 라라 괴와기 아니 대야와 냠바타 창동와라 때네 아니 랑게 노야 사바주와 아니 노사바 주와다 창기 직된에 주지 대야 노양 사바 줄 아니 창기 인여데 아니 파마비 제바마보 터니 파메비 몽베 차와 많이 바쳐봐 파메기 인창근일 아니 차와 많이 바쳐베 아니 딜 첸딜라야 동아와 치마라야 안 동아니가 요와 인장 니지 님이 시예베 아니 대외 창립 다도 봉시 와 두스레도와 가소래 라샹지 야와 최신 거위터 야와 즉 노야 사바 조와 즉 밤에비 몽바 차와 많이 바체베 아니 디 쳇디라 동아 영화 다 치마라 동아 영화 전이 시오데 창기 예와 인장 아니 창다도 봉구래.
The next section shows a more extended explanation of behaviors that ought to be avoided. And the first shows is a negation of attachment to alcohol. There's a rejection of gambling, and a rejection of attachment to women and attachment to hunting. So first comes negation or rejection of attachment to alcohol, and this is verse 46. Where is that? Here it says intoxicants, but in the text it says alcohol. From alcohol comes the world's disdain, your own failure and loss of your wealth. Confused, you do what you should not. Therefore, always refrain from alcohol. So here the commentary says that by means of alcohol, when you initially drink it here in the world at this time, that others will have contempt for you. They'll think, he drinks. He drinks alcohol. And so others will have contempt for you in that way. And then the second is that your aims will be thwarted. That is, you won't be able to accomplish, if you drink alcohol, you won't be able to accomplish the things that you wish to achieve. And then likewise, your wealth will become lost. You'll lose your wealth. And then the fourth reason one should avoid alcohol is that you, out of the confusion that arises from sort of confused sorts of carelessness that arise from drinking alcohol, you'll engage in all kinds of things that you ought not to do through intoxication. And so by thinking about these negative consequences, both here in this life, as well as in your future lives that arise from drinking alcohol, then one should always avoid drinking alcohol.
다트니 겸보 가봐 겸보라 가바니 있어 다 겸보 괜주니 아니 좀 어째 된줄라 겸보라 개봐 겸보 차단 미가다 차단 요주 매비네 진단 자와 치주지 대외 다도 방와 차세 아니 괜怎么在话了괜 어떻게 겸보 개봐텔라 가와텔라 님이구수니 님이구여베테 다도 아니 괜 방거래세 是吧？这个大都见帮着也没有贵吧？也没有贵的，看着嘞是那，俺那见不恰当，见了点呢，俺那现金拿来掐哇，现金拿，俺那让了差不多300元吧，现金拿来掐哇，见不起比退呢，俺那见的托把没多年都，俺那拿了也没得建议，也没得话给没干哇，这呢。 전부 안에 현라 안에 토발라 소바 대달라 현야 당마당 아니 요주당 전부 토비치도 안에 랑이 룡하게 여주 쳐봐 아니 고배네 가서로 고바 아사나 다 되자게와기네 아니 전부 집에 가라 아니 주마와 아니 미거 주나네 대매기 안에 책자와 마와 안에 현라 책주 마와 어차 구주구디 대인 바래 라 세당 여주 거배 전부 차단 미가탕 세당 여주 거배네 진단 자와 책주주 대외 다도 방원
So the next is rejection or advice to avoid gambling. And here, this is in verse 47, gambling causes attachment, dislike and anger, deception, trickery, and an occasion for wildness, lying, pointless chatter, and harsh speech. So there's 9 listed here, 9 negative consequences or defects of gambling. Therefore, always refrain from gambling. So the commentary here explains that when one's engaging in gambling, or especially having fondness for gambling and attachment to it, fondness for gambling, has 9 defects or negative consequences. That is, and therefore one should always avoid in gambling. And so what are the 9 defects, 9 consequences that come from being fond of gambling? First, one develops desire for others' wealth. While one is gambling, one wants to take away wealth from others. So one develops attachment, desire for that. And then while one is involved in gambling, one thinks has anxiety about whether or not one is going to win or not. So you have that kind of anxiety which produces unhappiness within the mind. It's the second. Then one gets angry when other people beat you and you lose. Then you get angry at them. One engages in deception and trickery. These 2 different things, deceiving others and tricking them in order to win. While one's involved in gambling, it's a general sort of time in which one is subject to sort of wild states of mind, wildness. And then one lies often while one's gambling, or engages in idle chatter or harsh words. So all of these various forms of non-virtuous speech. So there are these 9 defects of gambling that are enumerated, and then the advice given here is therefore always avoid gambling.
오야 다 대인 가서래 jambo 다 차바 가바데 jambo 가바데 다 제제라 표면에 차바 빵와 되려서 미상위리 표면기리 장와지를 가바다 소소 가바다 미상와 공비 제우 숨 예배 나네 다 리상 지를 가바테라 표면기리 미상와 지를 가바니 아니 표면 차바 파제니 표면 수사 삼례중 표면 레를 류라 텐도니 장와 준세 여마 인스 다 지당 천시 표면 송화를 마도先叫他 표면最演讲안에 다 미상외라시 바지바체 나 뒤나라 표면글이라 미상와 지가바니 표면라 차바테니 미상와 시도 수장와 선발에 중화 인지세 랑기스 아니 수장와 선발에 때네 상고당월 때네 중화를 마데 표면글이라 니 장와 주세자 여바 마인배 아니 차바 미리소시 표면글이라 텐도니 장와 주세 여마인
So then next explains a way to get rid of one's attachment to women. This is advice for the king. So this has multiple subdivisions, sort of general rejection of the notion that the female body is clean, a specific rejection of different facets of this, and then the results of doing this kind of meditation on the impurity of the body, of the female body here. So the first of these is the general rejection of, negation of this. And this comes in verse 48, which says, most attachment to women comes from the belief that women's bodies are pure. But in actuality, there is no purity in a woman's body at all. So the commentary explains this same thing in virtually the same words, saying that this attachment to women comes from the belief that that their bodies are clean when in fact they're unclean. However, in reality, the female body is not clean. It's not clean in any way whatsoever, and therefore it's inappropriate to be attached to it.
어제 다질 가봐다 니와 리장와 소소 가봐다라 아니 다 가서래 숨 예배 나네 담보 표면지 리제와 가봐 세라양 시 예배 나네 아니 가서래 미ዛ메라신 바시 임베 차바 미리바 세제 담보디 팀바래 다 미자메바 라신 바시 임베 차바 미랑와 되라看你他进去了什么那些人看你看就绕哇当说家没长那人的那就那明年没都起没那而且话那些钱呢看你看就绕哇当是看你看就绕哇当啊那说家没长哇跟那人的应该差不没的是吧看你说家没长那人的提醒都那你那当啊你那不当아니 나주 내 인배 미네 인바다 미니 미도미기 첨마당 치미 내 인배 아니다 차바미리.
So then the next comes the topic of the specific explanation or showing how different parts of the body are not clean or rejecting the idea that the different portions of women's bodies are clean. And so the first of these is showing that because it has a nature which is unclean, that it's inappropriate to be attached to it. And then, so this is in verse 49, which says, her or a female's mouth is a vessel of impurity with putrid saliva and gunk between her teeth. Her nose is a pot of snot, phlegm, and mucus, and her eyes contain eye slime and tears. So this just lists all of the various kinds of basically mucus and so forth, slime, etc., that one finds in the mouth, in the nose, and so forth. So it gives it, same commentary says exactly the same thing, that the mouth has saliva in it, which can be putrid or spoiled. And then the teeth have stuff that appears between them after eating and so forth, which is unclean. So it's like a vessel containing that, and therefore it's unsuitable to be attached to the mouth. And then same thing with the nose. Various different forms of mucus come out of the nose, and so it's like a pot of mucus. There's no reason to be attached to that. And then the eyes also have it's really a kind of another form of mucus, as well as tears, and therefore it's like a vessel that contains those tears and mucus.
Oh yeah. 但今天提完了，都有看你相见的，老外去说那原本，我把平面码多把绿来下巴切把切些，都有看你，俺你相见的，老外的七八说去那原本，啊，都有可能，俺你蒙白给，俺你平面没上往马桶外，我把平面蒙白忘给，俺你平面没上往马桶外，俺你推里来切把切把，怎么就塞多，谁个啦？提路来切把切。
Then the next verse elaborates further on this. Her torso is a container of excrement holding urine, the lungs, liver, and such. Those who are confused do not see that a woman is such, and thus they lust after her body. And so this says exactly the same thing in the commentary, that it's out of a kind of confusion that doesn't recognize that the body, especially the main cavity of the trunk, contains feces and urine, lungs, liver, etc. It's a container that has those, and therefore, out of not seeing the female body in that way as being filled with impurities and unclean, then these confused persons develop attachment to their bodies.
我的题别的啦，米些个些没上有澎湃点来吃吧的，今天米些毛把一平面那么了提醒我，这个啦，米些话个毛把个些话米些话个些个，米上话看为，难道米上话看给，俺就澎湃，七路的人不起了，所谓经济债完了吃吧大人。今天把样平面没上话让些米些把毛把一。So
the next verse gives an example of how it is that people misapprehend bodies in that way. So this is listed as 50a in this translation. Like unknowing persons who have become, or one could say confused persons, or ignorant persons who have become attached to an ornamented vessel filled with filth, unknowing and confused worldly beings are attached to women. So here, same thing in the commentary, it says that some people who are ignorant don't understand, just as they might, someone who is ignorant of what it contains could become attached to a vessel like a pot or something, which is externally beautifully decorated with jewels and whatnot, but which contains impure things or filth within it. Similarly, worldly persons who are attached to women can, because they're confused and do not understand the nature of the female body, they become attached to women out of that misapprehension and confusion.
Oh yeah, that's it. Pimela China Chadra Jiname Banjua, Sumbateni, Liu Shin to Chinga, Chadra Junior Kanyan Ba. Tian Jidan, Chechana, Kangida Chawa Juru Segana, Ani Pimeji Lu, Ani Yu Shin to Chingawa. Chingawa Tomala Dene, Chingawa the Midibit Lord Deni, Ani Chingawa Tela, Chabatan Trabak, Ani Castle Chabatan Travi, Jutatu Bare, Kanyan Batela. 뭐 된다와 대라 차바단 잡을 지고 주타도 봐 강인 봐 대라 아니 그 직대 채차나 대라 차바 차나 아니 채 신도 차나 유 강라야 탑 강기 되자단 잡아 안 되자단 잡아를 찌वर 채봐 되자단 잡아 찌वर 채봐면 토발 채봐기 차바단 대회 내면 주에서
So then, next shows why, if one is attached to women, then there's no way that one can become free of attachment. One is not a suitable basis for developing attachment. The commentary here, the verse 51 in my translation says that if the world is greatly attached to noxious objects, this translation is a little bit off. It should really read like stench, bodies that stink, then which should cause non-attachment. How then can it be led to non-attachment? So the commentary says that the body as in general is a extremely stinky thing. And it actually, if one thinks about it properly, it would be the cause of developing detachment. If one properly thinks about it, one sees its stinky nature, and it should in fact serve as a cause for it's the ultimate cause of detachment. But this worldly beings, because of their extreme attachment to it, they don't, because of their extreme attachment to it, they're not able to develop dispassion towards it or detachment. And that being the case, if for such worldly people, then what object could they possibly, and what method could they use to be led to detachment, freedom from attachment? So people who have that sort of attitude are not don't have the basis for developing detachment at all.
Oh yeah, that is yeah. 미사양 안에 림베왕게 몽베 림베왕게 가위주 다바니 기타 상다 지시라 안주 파랍 차와다 대시 상다 지시라 되대 안주 파남 차 시가나 배나 아니 상지 지와라 차바다 안주라 아니 파바랍도 차바나 파랍도 차와 대신도 상지라 지와라 되대 안주라 차비 파단자와 파바단자위 깨와남 안주라 차비 파바단자위 깨와나 피멜라 랍도 차바 따로
So then the next verse explains how even though it is impure, fools imagine that it is a cause of joy. And the example is given here in this next verse 52, which says that just as filth-loving pigs are greatly attached to heaps of feces and urine, so too the filth-loving pigs that are desirous people are greatly attached to heaps of feces and urine. So in the commentary it says, just as in that example, that pigs eat and are attached to desire piles of feces and urine and vomit. So just as pigs are extremely attached to that, likewise, people who have strong desire are attached to heaps of feces and urine. Just similar, so here it says men that are similar to pigs that are attached to vomit are men that are extremely attached to women in the same way are just like pigs that are extremely attached to vomit.
Oh yeah, that didn't you translate Mizama, you will forget to buy. Tene kiu lembo ye gawe tendo nyawada se legi symbol legi changje mejama asa legi na ani symbol gi changje mejama jungwa gi ani legi puga teba kanyin ba puga teba kanyin pime tene kiu lembo momba ge ba lembo yi ani gawe ju tendo nyawa da ne ani lo chinji lo gi Then
the next verse elaborates on that further, saying, foolish persons imagine that this city of bugs that is the body, with cavities that are sources of filth, is something conducive to pleasure. So the inside of the body is like, here in the commentary it's explained, is like a city of bugs or worms, maybe more accurately. It's a source for all kinds of filth arising. And it's sort of like a relief. The exterior of the body is like a relief carved, but which is actually a source. The orifices of it are the source of filth. And someone, a fool, who examines a woman's body and imagines that that is the source of pleasure or joy, is simply attached to women out of some kind of erroneous sort of understanding or cognition of how the body actually is. So the next verse is kind of a general rejection of attachment to women's bodies. And this is given in verse 54. When you yourself see the impurities of excrement, urine, and such, how can the body being composed of them be something pleasant desirable for you? Attractive is maybe a little better way to something that's attractive to you. So the commentary here says the same thing. You by yourself, if you've understood, having seen that a woman's body is composed of these filthy things, individually has feces and urine and so forth within it, then how is it that this body, which is a composite of these filthy things, should be attractive to you?
차단 구원 저와 예사베 메사님베체 메사수스 시신도 ndila deja kangi cha sega 주당 오 멤버 ni 차다 구와단 제위 아니 메사위 인비 아니 깨봐 아니 메사위 수 깨봐 아니 메사위 수신도 수수 아니 랑기 시신도 아니 ndila 대바다다바 kangi 차바 체기래 세가 메사수스 시신도 ndila deja kangi 차.
So the next verse shows the nature, cause and nature of the body, and this is 55. It is produced by a seed of impure essence. Here, excuse me, one could probably translate this better as like an embryo of which is impure, an admixture of ovum and semen. How can the lustful be attached to it when they know its nature is impure? So here this is showing that both in terms of cause and in its nature, it's a low or vile thing. That is, the seed of it is a mixture of blood and semen, and the body is generated out of an embryo which is composed of impure things. And then understanding that the body has that is made of impurity in that way, then how can someone who is, why or how should someone have desire and be attached to that?
Oh yeah, that didn't teach la. 미상풍보 티len지 렘베 바바 요바카. 냐와 테니 피메지 추수코나 냐와 세가 미상위 풍보 미상와 티 렌지 렘바. 바바 요와 칸야와디 피메지 또와다 때데 냐와 세베 피메다 냐와니 미상와다 또와데디 냐오 세데 티니지세.
The next Next comes 56, which says, one who lies with this filthy mass covered with skin moistened by those fluids is doing nothing more than lying on top of a woman's bladder. So the commentary says the same thing. This mass of impurity, which is covered by a skin, which is moistened by impurity. Someone who lies with that is coming into contact with the stomach of a woman in that way, is simply lying with her in that way. Lying with a woman like that is simply sleeping such that one is in contact with something impure, something that's impure like that, or like a stomach which is impure.
나 비매지 카도다 일라 차바 찌를 까봐 대라. 아니 담보 수제와라 차바 까봐 대라. 일단 카도를 찌 까봐 대세요. 수상와다 수응해방 개남야나 시야로 비매 수그 메자나 최자 차바카 차바카라 찌시 수상와다 수응해남 개남야나 시야중 아니 swimmer지 수기 간 탐잠 꽤 메자나 아니 최차바 아니 차바와 칼라 제데 차바 제비 시와 말에 참아 미장을 하시래 세대 최자 차바 칼라지.
So next is a rejection or negation of the attachment to the color and the shape of a woman's body, and this is showing that this is in verse 57, which says, whether it be beautiful or ugly, whether it be young or old, the body of any woman is filthy. So to what special quality could you be attached? So whether a woman has a nice body or an ugly body, whether she's young or whether she's old, since the female body is entirely impure, then which special quality of it are you being attached to? There's no foundation for that attachment at all.
수제와라 차바데라 차바 미르바데라 가데 미상 카도사 신도사라 입레장 테라 차바야 차바 미에다르 비메술라 티신노세 미상위 공부 카도 상시 신도 아니 사바 아니 이야보 연나야 아니 테레 차바 미여와 나신 아니 비메술라야 베 티신도 뒤다도 아니 차바이 미 차바 미에서.
Then the next is showing why it's inappropriate to be attached to it, even if it's beautiful. And then this is in verse 58. It is not right to yearn for a pile of, impure things is probably a better way to, or could be excrement, even if it has a nice color or is very fresh or nicely shaped. Likewise, one should not yearn for a woman's body. So the same thing said in the commentary, that a lump of something which is impure, or also can translate this word as excrement. Even if the color is nice, has a nice color, it's nice and fresh. If the shape of it is beautiful also, it's unsuitable to be attached to that. And then that's used as an example for female body also. One should, it's never appropriate to be attached to that.
아니 로년디 라신이 아니 미상와 신도 미세바 나신도 아니 시다분나 통함미주 미상와 라신도 통함미주도 통고 그래 소아진지다.
So the next verse says elaborates on that 59, which says, while the nature of this rotting corpse with its putrid core covered with skin looks extremely terrible, why do the lustful not see it? So the interior of it is rotted. In the exterior is covered with skin. So it's metaphorically a rotting corpse. It has this nature of being a rotting corpse. Why doesn't one see it? Although it appears as a horrible, extremely horrible sort of impure thing, why does one not see it in that way?
Oh, yeah. That's quite less than the dear one. Oh, Papa Diam, Mizami, Ragashindu, Dujena. Say, Papa Diam, Mizawa, Shindu, Landa. Ani Mizawi, Rashindu, Nevi, Chil, Tovi, Ani Mizawi, Papa Dar, Chitabona, Tama Cutie, Ani Mizawi Rashid.
So then next it says 60, which says, the skin is not, someone might say, the skin is not impure. It is just like a soft cloth, like a leather bag filled with a turd or just with impurity. How could it be clean? Someone might say that the skin is not impure, that it's like a woolen cloth, since it's like that. However, that is not actually the case. It's because it has an impure nature. It exists in the nature of impurity. So then the end of that commentary on that says that just like a skin holding a heap of rubbish, it's how could it be pure? The skin, it is not pure, and so it has that nature. Then showing that it's unsuitable, or rather that it's suitable to disparage this. And this is verse 61. It says, while a vase filled with excrement might glitter, it is still objectionable or despicable. The body whose nature is filth is filled with filth. Why is it not despicable? So the commentary says the same thing. If you have a vase which is filled with filth, even if the exterior of it is nicely decorated, it's still something which is despicable. And similarly, the body, which has the nature of filth, is since it's filled with filth, why is it not despicable? It's suitable to despise it, and it's inappropriate, incorrect to be attached to it.
Oh. 가대천이 미사메 기타 청와 사도니 장왕 미산 쳐바가 류디 지 칠미베세가 천이 칠 토와게 미산와나 메바다 기타 청와다 사도 장마양 미산와 쳐바 강예비 류테니 지지 미메데 메바르지 떠바 미리
Same. The next verse continues. If 62. If you object to filth, this is being translated as excrement here, but the word could actually just mean filth. If you object to filth, why not object to this body which takes pure perfume, garlands, food, and drink, and turns them into filth? Here the commentary says the same thing, that one disparages or despises the filth which is to be cast away. Then why wouldn't one have the same attitude or disparage the body which takes food and perfume or garlands, food and drink, which themselves could be pure to begin with, and then the body turns them into impurity? Why wouldn't one disparage the body which functions that way? And it is suitable to do that, and it's unsuitable to praise it.
Oh yeah, that is 제라 나 숨바 피메 그 류당 자와 나 랑그 류장 미상와 삼바니 치다 랑음 현다기 미상매바 차와 따르 란다시 티시 란다 현다기 미상 수고 지드메 어디기 치다 아니 가소래 란다 현다기 서그랑 랑시엔 타기 랑다 현다기 치료지 미상와야 매바 차왔다를 치료나 입에 미상와 매바 차왔다를 대신도 랑다 현디 타기 미상이 수고 수니 지 미매데 차바도양 안에 매고리 치료기 미상와다 차바 중사제 요 말이 세야되라 가서래 미상 수고 지 미배 기타 변매 수 미상 최지랑리 태단자.
So then the next verse and a half explains how it is that just like the female body, one's own body, here addressing the king, is also impure, is unclean and filthy. So the advice here is for him to think, just as the female body has that impure nature, likewise his own body is just like that. So here it says, 63, a pile of filth is objectionable whether it be from you or someone else. Why not then object to these filthy bodies, whether it is your own or someone else's? Your own body is just as filthy as the body of a woman. So here then it says in the commentary, just as some kind of filth that is external filth, which is your own or someone else's, that is external filth that you own or someone else owns, is something which is despicable. Just like that, one's own body, whether the body belongs to yourself or it belongs to someone else, the impure body, why isn't it something that is despicable? And there's no difference at all between them in any way whatsoever.
Oh yeah. 아니 다서 대나 비밀 길이라 참 미르바니 대외 치다 나한테라 대자 차와 리미남시 리미사와 임바 군전 대외 나 아니 치다 나라데 치다 난게 니라데 세가라 현당 랑기 류라 아니 대자단 차와 리바 마이남 이러고 그래.
So then it says that thus it's inappropriate to be attached to women's bodies. And the second half of verse 64 says, so it doesn't make sense to be, doesn't it make sense to be unattached to both the external and the internal? So here it says, because the body is impure, therefore, whether it's an external body that is someone else's body, or your own body and the internal body of your own, isn't it appropriate that you should separate yourself from attachment to the body?
Oh yeah, that is yeah. Juba mayinam magu tana zabachen. 당연 무슨 취체장 리미장만 메도나 철라셰베 지시팬세 다 류지 칼라 서와 마군에 잡아 젠지 미사베 단위 젠지 니마레레 신도 아니 무슨도 추월 체장 리미장와 마도나 아니 겨우 류디 미장이 마도나 아니 겨우 철라 미두버 공바 그 탑 셰베 지시 편지 팬그 말에 송하더라 미상 리미장마 미도바 첼라 셰베 지시 팬시 미도바 공바 셰베 지시 팬시 미장마 미도바 미릭시 예자 미장마 이바 또 그래 스탄바 이말에.
So then this next verse is the instruction as such, that it says that here is verse 65, which says, even though you daily rinse off the excretions from your 9 wounds, 9 wounds here refers to the orifices of the body. If you still do not realize that the body is impure, then what is the point of explaining this to you? So actually, one could translate this a little bit differently, saying that you wash this body, which is obviously that from the 9 orifices in the body, the mouth and so forth, is referring to excretions that come out of the body. The body excretes various filthy substances all day long and day and night, and you nevertheless have to wash it. And if that's something that you can see directly, you observe this yourself, and you don't understand, if you can't understand that the body is impure, then what benefit is there in explaining this to you? So by implication, it's saying that this is an instruction that you ought to understand this. And so again, the commentary here says that this body, which possesses these 9 literally wounds, wounds are being used metaphorically for the orifices, the mouth, etc., from which things are excreted, which excrete impurities. Each day you directly wash it yourself, and if you don't understand that the body is impure from that, then what is the point of explaining this method of meditating upon the body as being unattractive, this meditation on the unattractive nature of the body? What benefit would there be in explaining this? Meaning that the instruction, that means that it's inappropriate that you do not understand that the body is impure. And so that's this instruction that Master Nagarjuna has given to the king.
Oh, yeah, that's you. 对比看上了没把你平面了对比看上了没把的了，看的没上绿的了，的确人啊切把你要么水要么绿色。 俺要看的，看到是看到，看到没上于平面就绿的了，差呢，大体个也对比切几个原点就把，俺的对比人啊白马党大瓦堂，明了白马党大瓦堂，一般老啥作为一般说堂这边，七角切把你，要么我水龙才能我咱没把堂，要么另外你没写把归那浪话的，
So then. The next verse is criticism of people that compose praises of women. And then this says that someone who, in the translation is 66. Some compose, the translation here says erotic poetry. I think this should rather be romantic poetry. Some compose romantic poetry about this filthy body. Oh, what shamelessness, oh, what idiocy or foolishness, how worthy of people's contempt. So then the commentary on that explains that some persons compose poetic praises, which are in romantic poetry, out of attachment to the women's bodies, which are in fact impure, and they compose. They use rhetoric, which is there's technical terms for, which is like lotus, like the moon, like a water lily, using those rhetorical. How's this? Ornaments. What is that? Alamkara. The Pemadang Dawadang Utpala Supetrai Tikjor Cheba.
Tikjor Cheba.
Tikjor Cheba.
Tikjor Cheba, sir.
Ninga.
And Yang oh,
So they use sort of poetic imagery, like using a lotus or the moon or water lilies and so forth, as rhetorical devices to praise the body in this romantic poetry. So those sorts of compositions, when in fact the body is filthy, are shameless shameless sort of hypocrisy, or one could say foolishness, and they're motivated. Such fools are motivated out of ignorance.
Oh yeah, Emma Jiu Chedurum, Michel Mimbe Jibai, Semjan Dini Pajani, the Britain to Jejon, Mizan tend to Chinam Sing, Segana, Emma or Segana, Anita, Keve, 아니 캐위 기부기 안에 배 기부 채봐 채도 롱라 캐와 미시비 멤버집이 안에 섬자니 니니 파제양 안에 비면에 차비 데뷔 텐도 비면에 차바그 안에 데뷔 텐도 로벤다 로마탕 자시라 소와 잡아 중앙이 잡아 중앙에 미장위 텐도 안에 키남 잡아 나시래.
So then continued criticism of this practice of composing these kinds of poems and so forth. This is in 66 and 67, which says, "Oh, what shamelessness, what idiocy, how worthy of people's contempt." And then the rest of the verse goes, in this world, sentient beings obscured by the darkness of unknowing mostly quarrel about what they lust for, like dogs fighting over filth. So here the explanation of this is that, alas, these persons who consider themselves to be educated are actually shameful, or this is shameful, and out of this ignorant confusion, these sentient beings are obscured by this kind of ignorant confusion, and primarily out of their lust for women, their erotic attachment to women, they create arguments among teachers and students, and they create arguments among friends and so forth, friends and family out of this kind of thing. And so they're basically like dogs that are fighting over filth.
다 비면에 차바 대위 주인바 가바니 양바 춘나 대주와 대외 양바 맨나대 대신 지된 되된데 되바면나 대외 대 제제 안에 양바 춘나 안에 주세 편비 대와자 나나양 두와다 나양 추비 대와 대외장 안에 양바 추비 내 맨나 대와 대신도 지된 유용아 수자 치료라서 유용아라 되니지 대바단 덴바 데발라 론제베 데와다 나나양 데바 메바 대외장 데 아니 데발라 차바라 바 아니 데비 제자라 차바단 차바라 빼고래.
Then the next shows that it's a rejection of the idea that attachment to women is actually a cause for happiness, this kind of attachment. An example is given here in verse 68, which says, and here I'm modifying the translation a little bit. It says, if you scratch a sore, it feels good, but it feels even better to have no sore at all. The word that they're translating as itch, I would translate as sore. So too, one is happy in obtaining worldly desires, but there is greater happiness in having no desires at all. So the example here is explained in the commentary where it says that someone who has leprosy has sores, and if they pick at those sores or scratch those sores, there's some kind of little bit of good feeling that arises for that. It feels as if it's benefiting oneself. Although it appears as if it is happiness, better than that slight pleasure that arises from scratching at the sore like that, it would be better not to have a sore at all. And just like that, in the world, those who have strong desire that seeks after the five objects, sense objects that give pleasure, that sort of desire, and by enjoying those desirable things, it appears as if they're having some kind of happiness. But that kind of happiness is actually illusory, or not. It appears like happiness, but it's much more pleasurable to be free from that kind of desire, to have no desire at all. And therefore, one should make effort to separate oneself from attachment to these sort of desirable things.
Oh yeah. That's kondu ta mizawa kombi jewu de la karere sana mizawa kombi jewu ni kade teta tana che deja chawa maju jang enjang deja sabai pime na la cha mi ju ru si kade teta li mizawa rasin du ane ta ba ta ni komna 토마 공바단 랑상 안에 대자 저 주고 말했어. 비밀 차바 대자도 저 마주장 연나요 공배 안에 차바 지중도 손에 타르 대자 사바이 아니 대자 사바를 총알을 때네 아니 비밀을 차바 민주가 연구를 해야 되라. 연장 대자 사바이 비밀 차바 민주로
So then next comes the result of doing this kind of meditation on the impurity, the result of this meditation. And then the verse here says, this is 69, when you examine or analyze things in this fashion, even if you are not yet freed from desires, you will cease lusting after women through the gradual decrease of your desire. So here one can explain this as if when you've examined the body and recognized the impure nature of the body, and you've examined it in that way, at the very beginning, it's not the case that you'll become free from your attachment or your desire. And especially lust. So that it's even if you don't accomplish that freedom from lust right from the very beginning, however, it will by having it gradually diminish. You'll be able to eventually restrain and remove your strong attachment, and then eventually become no longer be attached to women.
Rida linde tetawe tatu sume temba cha se kanata so chedi ane sojo ge le cheba ge namingi debula ane rani cherab chendu ane sojo ge gyundinji jawu ane cherab chendu ya soje bala kawata namingi debu ane katse tunga jewata namingi debu ngasondo jewata jiba mangwata dunga chewata onya yu miseba Rida la ling de said rida soje pangwa segmento soje ba chwa mi che ba tere na da du seme temba jeji.
The next comes a rejection advice to avoid hunting. So this begins by saying that one should give up killing, abandon killing as such. And this is in verse 70. Hunting is the terrible cause of a short life, fear, and suffering, and also rebirth in the hells. Therefore, always firmly refrain or avoid killing. So here it says that out of engaging in hunting oneself throughout one's life, will experience the result of taking life. And so the results are such that there's the result which is the result which concords with the action itself here. That is, if you if you're conditioned yourself to engaging in hunting, then in subsequent lives, even if you're reborn as a human, you'll have a desire to engage in hunting again in the future lives. And then in terms of the actual maturational result of hunting, one will have experienced suffering in the lower realms and so forth. So there's these two kinds of results. The results which are accord with the cause, and then the maturational result, so that, for example, in the next life or in a future life, if you're born as a human, you might have a short life as a result of that. You might have a fearful kind of life in which you encounter many kinds of terrifying things. Again, a result which is similar to the cause. You'll have a great deal of suffering in your life, or then you might as well be reborn in hell as a result of this action. So all of these the hunting then, such as chasing and hunting deer, for example, is a horrible thing which produces those kinds of results. Therefore, the advice is that one should also always firmly avoid killing.
다 현라 잡아 잡아 방화디 연라 디다 미자외 꾸주도 잡아다 강라 때네 류전나 잡아 주와 대령에 연라 탐제라 미자와 꾸주도 바견 안에 칸에 안에 툭 잡아 잡아라 잡아 안에 현라 내바탕 안에 쳐왔다 강사 강라 때네 안에 류전 잡아 주와기 안에 남바 임배 아니 나바 탐제도 방화 차고래
Then the next verse explains how one should avoid terrifying others as well, causing others to be in a state of fear. It says, like a snake all smeared with filth, poison dripping from its fangs, despicable indeed is the one on account of whom others feel terror. So the commentary says that same thing in other words, that just like a poisonous snake which has been is covered with filth, so that its all of the different parts of its body are covered with filth, and then also out of its mouth poison is dripping out of its mouth, harming others, injuring others, harming them, and causing other living beings to be terrified is extremely evil. That is extremely evil kind of behavior. Therefore, one should avoid it in all ways.
Oh yeah, that 잡아 잡아 대 방네. 다 가와 잡아 담바니, 가와 잡아 담바니. 차진 전부 남바나 신반 남니 치다르와. 강라 때네 류잖아 가와 주와 대레상. 다 차진 전부 잡아봐야 차진 전부 남아나 아니 신반 남 가와 잡아 치다와. 아니 차 신라 잡아봐 용거인자 신반나 가와 잡아 치다르와. 야오라 소와 칸라 때나 아니 류제는 가라 추와 야오라 때네 아니 류제는 가라 섬잠 가라 추와테 제바 상부 취지 제바 임배 자위 제바지 취지 제바 임배 아니 나바 탐제도 땜바 차오.
Then the next advice is to instead delight others, to cause others to feel delight. And the verse here explains that, verse 72 in this translation, when a great rain cloud appears, farmers experience much joy. Excellent in this way is the one on account of whom beings feel joy. So just as when a large rain cloud appears, farmers experience delight. Similarly, kings and others who are in that position, if they're able to cause other living beings to experience joy, then this is something that they should constantly resort to, so as to create joy in others. That is, because the best kind of behavior is the activities of the Dharma, then by means of these good activities, one should constantly in all ways practice them so as to cause others to experience joy.
Oh yeah, that teacher la, chuma yimba pane chen ruby, ane turn do what day. Tebe chumin panjaji, yawa meba chola dance, or the condo, not a man to sheba, Junzan Tebe na. That church and a Rashan never me, nippy, and a chuma imba pawa chati, Randa Shala nippy. Tuita to yawa meba, and a randan, Shala Pamberg, and a chetamber zuji, and a landoji, nan, door to you, Tamba imber, yawa meba chola dance.
Then the last two lines of verse 70, the first two lines of verse 73 explain a summation of practicing the Dharma by means of abandoning. Let me restart that. The first two lines of verse 73 is a summation which says that getting rid of abandoning non-Dharma, one should practice Dharma. And here it says, Therefore, refrain from what is not dharma, heedfully practice the dharma. So it says, just as has been explained extensively above, by means of that, one should abandon entirely the non-dharma, which harms oneself and others, and at all times, without any kind of distraction, one should rely upon, serve, and practice the dharma, which benefits both oneself and others. So this is an instruction in brief on the topics that should be abandoned and the topics, things that should be taken up.
Oh yeah, that the angel yang mondola tamdi ane tamba de ma chini. Da sumba ngele gyune shaba la. Lana mebe chanju ji ju zo sum de dune tela lawa tang. Chen soni sanje ji chen soni rubar chebe gyula lawa. Beje ji gyune ji ndiri jebar mame be gyunzan dang. Sanje da khulu ji jawi chen rubi chebar se da sabje te yobe nane. Tana tambo lana mebe chanju ji zo sum de dune lawa ni. Da te imba.
So then, what has been given above is primarily an exposition of how to achieve high status, the rebirth in a higher state of existence in the next life. And then what follows is an explanation of the causality. The previous was explaining the causality by which one achieves rebirth in a high status form of life. Then what follows is an explanation of the causality pertaining to the highest good. And the first topic here is showing that an instruction in how to train oneself in the three principal causes of unexcelled awakening. And so that comes first, and there are other topics here about the way in which to train oneself in the cause for achieving the signs and marks, the 32 major marks of a Buddha, and then an explanation of the reason why the subsidiary signs of a Buddha are not explained here extensively, and the causality by which one achieves the 80 so-called minor marks of a Buddha, they're not explained in this text, why that's the case. And then the way in which one achieves special marks, which are those of a Buddha and as well as of a universal emperor.
Oh yeah, that didn't. Lana mebe chanju ji ju zo sum du dune tela laba ni se gana. Da ju zo de la, ane tere ka so de chanju sem da, ninje da, ane tawa. Indan dani tani jiden di se gana dani dang tani, ane jiden di, ane ka so de dani tani jiden di se kowa nebe semjen di se. 다 라니 코알라 저데 나나면 바야다와 저베 산제지 콤바 톱고 톱아 너그 예나스 아니 라메 찬주 톱되나 다 라나면 찬주 톱아 쳐바기 아니 귀 자와 간들에 있잖아 찬주 뒤 자와 아니 찬주 sem제 탐제를 되도 라나면 바야다와 저베 산제지 아니 가서 콤바 톱아 되봐 그래서 semjen tamjeji tendu chedu jawa shandendu shan ani o kaso la nyande la gobi letu ani o lani lana ba yang da ba zobe sanjeji komba top dena ani lana bi chanju jawa semjen tamjeji tendu lana ba yang da ba zobe chanju toban debi kunzo bi chanju ji sem ya.
So next comes the explanation of the instruction in summation. It's an instruction in the summary of the causes of the unexcelled awakening, and these are summarized within the three principal causes here. So this is given in verse 73, the second half of verse 73, and then verse 74. And it says here that if you and the world wish to attain unexcelled awakening, its roots are bodhicitta, that is firm as the king of mountains, compassion that is vast as space, and the wisdom that does not rely or is not based on the two extremes. It says duality here, but this is a reference to the two extremes. So here it says that if oneself or the world, this world, that is, here one could say that that is, if you yourself wish to achieve unexcelled awakening, or if you wish to establish other beings in that unexcelled awakening, or establish them in liberation and so forth, the other beings in the world, then it says here that you yourself, the king, and the sentient beings that exist here in the world of samsaric beings, if you wish yourself and this world to achieve unexcelled awakening, then one should train oneself in the three principal causes, which are listed, given later in the verse and explained. The first of these is the root of that unexcelled awakening, which is the phenomenal bodhicitta, which is the desire to achieve unexcelled awakening for the sake of all sentient beings.
Oh yeah. That tender was the Aname Chanju Toba Derby, Guzo Chanjuji same day. That Jen Shidang, Ju Shidang, Top Shi in Druby, that Chanju Wanga Jawa, that Dampatang, so that you Jen Shidi, Yabu Changu Chanju, and Jawadan Java Sala Tabi Tapa in body. Jadan Java Sala Tachi. And Jasanamji Chola Tacheba. Oh, Java Sada Javanamji, and a Chanju on a Chola Taba. On it, Lanami Chanjula Taba Cheba, that Jensi D in by your Tango Rawa. And it juicy, Yanang Jula so juicy. And it Dorsi Toto, Guyutom, Tavetom, and it Tevetop Chegana, that Topsi Tenjoy, Dana Hop to Chegana, Topsi Druby, and it Chanju Sem read on Jawa Dampatang. That Chanju Sem they gave a Chebala, Tea, Jula, and it Chode to be Ninja, Sirigana, Chode to be Ninja, said they can say, Sena, Chode Tubas, Saba Meba, Tubani Saba Meba La Tune, and it short. Caso Chode to be some general, Saba may be some general, meaning, and it do not try to in Jetang. Do not try to in Jetang. Tanila Midemba said, Tajak Tanila Matemba, Yotatang. Ranshiji, you be Yotala Matem. Then maybe Medala Matemba, Tanila Matemba, or Tajak Tara Dobi, Ishe, Tony Dobi, Ishe, Ibe. You was from the lava chowre, secretary to be Shela. That Anambayanda was over Sanjay Komatoba Chebi, you was from the lava.
So the remainder of this verse then explains that as an instruction that one ought to train oneself and study and train oneself in these three principal causes of the unexcelled perfect awakening. And so the first of these is, as we said, then the bodhicitta, phenomenal bodhicitta, which is the desire to achieve unexcelled awakening for the sake of all sentient beings. This is explained as having four conditions, four causes, four powers that produce it. The conditions are various forms of faith. The causes are like the primary or material cause of it, and then there's powers of etc. Just to mention them, and then these are by means of these sets of four, one is able to establish it as firm as the king of mountains, like Mount Meru. And then the principal cause of that bodhicitta itself is compassion. And this compassion is explained as compassion, which is the desire to separate all sentient beings which are inexhaustible in number. That is, these sentient beings reach to the extremes or limits of the entire universe. So observing the suffering, observing these sentient beings that reach to the very limits of the 10 directions or all of the universe, and seeing their suffering and wishing to free them from that suffering is the second of these three principal causes. And then the final primary cause here is the gnosis, which understands things So it's the gnosis which understands things free from extremes. The extremes here are the extreme of existence and the extreme of non-existence. That is the extreme which leads one into a realist view, or the extreme which leads one into a nihilistic view if one holds on to those extremes forms of existence. So this gnosis is then said it's not based on the two extremes.
Loben dawa chaba umala juba jawa dan la papchin da uma jubi kaso ani kaso tela shaban den shaban ne du de dan ba so da uma jubi kaso ka de sungwa de sana ninje semda ni su melo da changju semni jasa nam ju ju ninje se gana zawa ninje chemo ta ju na shi chode to bi ninje tang se de che ani ninji semdang ni su melo se de tani la mi den bi xie ti chen dong ni do bi xie ti chen ani changju chi sem se ge ga la ani changju ge sem se de changju ge sem de changju ge sem on du zhuo ge changju ge sem se de ani gu zhuo changju ge sem chen ni ba xia ge ma de wa sem che ba ba che ba wa chi xia ge wa ma do chanju se chani ba sha go amar wa de yin za lo ben da wa cha ba o ma la ju ba la ge wa den wen xin chi sa du te la xiang ban du ne den ba ni se du wa wo de yin za ani gun de ji tai du o ma ju bi gun de ko o ma la ju bi den bi sui ji sem je tang bo de o ma ju bi gun de den ye sa wa de chi sa du xiang ban du de den ba ni 건드지 태도 오마라 주바래 땜비 추지 셈제 탐보 셈제바 나는 뭐야도 저 chan주지 셈제바 되네 니스메비 이시지 겸바 세례가 돈이도 비 이시 아니 대니보 대라 아니 인지 전부 온도 좋아 인지 전부 온도 좋아 티신시비 이시지 주인 규르큐와 토만테네 다 산제기 대신시비 이시기 규르 안에 토마기 안에 차선 남자 토마기에 돼 송거래
디큐소소 공게 something went wrong in the 야부두기민도 다 건다 something went wrong with this
다 뭐 주제 센사샤다
I don't know.
네.
민두
다운 동호 샤시데 주제 센사샤 주제 센사를 가만히 있으시면 야.
No.
나 전이 샤지 샤시 말해.
So we'll stop there and we'll do this tomorrow because the mic went out. Only 5 minutes left.
조심해도 Sanje